All right, thank you so much for setting up the slide deck. Anytime we do these, it's always an interesting experiment in capacity uh, and learning all sorts of new skills. So um, before I get started, as a reminder, if you want to if you have questions for me, please feel free to put them on the chat. I'm going to ask Christy to just kind of keep an eye out for those. I am going to make some remarks, but I am hopeful to just really open it up for some conversations for about more than half of our time together. So I'll move through some information quickly to help give context to this idea of how we collaborate with others and how it's shaped our YMCA's here in Cincinnati. And my hope isn't just to have a conversation about what's happening in Cincinnati, but also if you are doing something similar, to hear back from you about how you are using these same platforms in your own roadmap. So let me start out with this first slide. Here we have the SS Minnow. If you want to just go ahead and advance that. Thank you. The SSYMCA. So we have here our little ship YMCA encountering what we all were very familiar with in terms of challenges. So this might be a local competitor that might move into the area, or our building is getting a little older. What very few of us were prepared for is the never-ending layers that ended up taking place. Not only did COVID hurt our membership, but also began to hurt our very programs and created and transformed entirely the environment. Christy, if you could advance, click on a couple of things here. Thank you. So those are others. And then no one imagined the COVID-19. So VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's a military term that describes a battle environment. You go in with a plan. This is what you're going to do, but the enemy isn't where they're supposed to be, or they come with certain weaponry you didn't expect. And the environment gets very volatile, very uncertain, very complex, and becomes very ambiguous. And that is what happened to the YMCA. We just entered this space. And I know it's not the shoreline down at the bottom, but our past experiences and knowledge and everything we understood about current conditions were no longer applicable, because not a single one of us in our movement had ever experienced anything like this. And so what the VUCA researchers tell us, if you could advance one click here, is that we've got to respond to each of these things with a lot of clarity. So really hone in on our vision and mission statements, being very foundational. This is one of the reasons why when I was asked what's the word that I select, it's transformation. It's because it's a foundational word for us. It's a foundational idea of how we transform the lives of people. Because here's what I believe. I believe that if we deliver on our mission to strengthen the spirits, the minds, and the bodies of the people we serve, we wouldn't have to advertise ever again. Think about it. If people could get a stronger spirit, a stronger mind, and a stronger body at the YMCA, why would you ever have to advertise again? But we weren't really sure whether the people in our facilities were actually healthier in spirit, mind, and body than the rest of the population. And so we have to get really foundational, crystal clear about who we are and what we do, and a lot of flexibility. We talked about that when we were interviewing the CEOs and asking questions. Next slide. So when COVID hit, I remember meeting with our board chair, and he asked me, he said, what are we going to do? How are we going to survive? And we had a brief conversation about how we were going to survive. And I was like everybody else, really discombobulated. I didn't understand what was going to happen to the YMCA. And so we established on two overarching ideas. One of them is we were going to stabilize the YMCA, whatever that meant, whether it We're talking about staffing and preserving cash, unwinding contracts and agreements, but also wanted to be crystal clear that we were to advance our mission. That just because we were in survival mode does not mean that we were not going to advance the mission of the organization. And so, on the one hand, we were trying to survive, and on the other hand, we were protecting people and the communities we served. And this became kind of our mantra, our overarching early ideas, hills we were going to take. We were going to furlough people or lay them off because we needed to stabilize the Y. And at the same time, we were going to mobilize people to go feed families and distribute food and launch pandemic care and so forth and so on, all at the same time. And I was talking to some colleagues in other fields, and they couldn't understand. They were trying to understand what we were doing, and they couldn't get their head around the two ideas, because in their world, they simply just closed down. They stabilized their organization. They didn't go off and now also responded to a whole new need. At the YMCA, we did both. We did two remarkable things. We protected the organization and advanced the mission of the organization, all at the same time. Next slide. Now, the dialogue that ensued is, well, what's next? There is this slide came from a article from the Stanford Social Innovation Review that categorizes the movement of nonprofits over history. So you had the social movements of the 1960s, and throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you had organizations and some social entrepreneurs that were popping up. And if you think of how the YMCA showed up, especially during the 1970s, this was us, kind of social entrepreneurs using fitness and wellness and reinventing ourselves several times throughout that 30-year period. And now we're into the 2020s, click. And what the Stanford Social Innovation Review was saying is that we are in this network systems, that we're in this place where maybe the future of our organizations is to work in networks and systems. Somebody mentioned Amazon in our previous conversations, and this is what a platform is. This is what a network is. And it's not the creator of everything, but the amasser or the convener of several things. Now, I should pause here and tell you that the YMCA is has a very hard time with this. We tend to be some of the largest nonprofits in communities, and so when we show up, we immediately take over the conversation. It's what we do. It's how we naturally show up. And inevitably, we almost always want them to help us. So library, how can you help me accomplish my work? Instead of me calling the library and say, hey, I'm just checking in to see how things are going. And is there anything the YMCA can do to help advance your mission? Because there's a part of your mission, which is education and knowledge, which is also part of my mission, which is mind and mind development. And I think I can help you and at the same time help us. And so, and by the way, that conversation ended up leading us to a conversation of how we were doing pandemic testing in our locations and what challenges we were having and how we solved for those. And what ended up happening is I'm sending some tents over to them and they're sending some ideas over to us. And that's us working together to accomplish a need. Next slide. This is a visual that I took the old idea of the YMCA, where we used to kind of fill in all of these places. We created programs for individuals, created programs for families, created programs for organizations, created programs for communities, created programs for society, and we worked almost exclusively by ourselves with a few partners along the way. Now, I don't want to minimize the fact that we had partners, but this is different. This is not about partnerships. Amazon does not partner with sellers. They completely depend on them. They don't sell their own products and then also sell uh, other products. They kind of codepend on each other. Uber does the same thing. Airbnb does the same thing. So when we think about our mission and communications, cooperation, brainstorming, planning, connecting, discussion skills, and supports and trust, this isn't us bringing everybody to the table to help us. Click. But it is us working together to produce something new, something totally different. The story of Amazon was a person that loved old books, wanted to have access to old books. That was it. And so he created a platform so that people that bought and sold old books can put them on a platform. And pretty soon he said, you know what? I could sell other things here. And the rest is history. And now most of us use Amazon to just do about everything. I can literally, while we were on the call or on the conference earlier, the Amazon people dropped off 2 or 3 times as I was sitting looking at my out the front window of my house. So I can shop, and some of you guys are doing this right now. Some of you guys are shopping for your gifts right now, or forgot that you didn't have a certain thing and you're going to buy some things. And this is an example of how platforms work. Next click. So the focus is going to be more around how the YMCA impacts a community and less about how the YMCA gets resources to itself. Would it be easier if I just shared my screen? Can you see my screen now?
Yes, that's perfect.
Thank you. So normally when we think of the YMCA, again, we're front and center of the conversation, and then we say, hey, folks in the community, would you come and help us do something? And so we're there, we call the United Way, we call the libraries, we call governments, the schools, the Chamber of Commerce, and we're always asking, well, here, can you help us? Well, what if the YMCA takes its place on the outside? What if the YMCA is simply one of the many providers? We might be the backbone organization down on the lower right-hand corner where we got to do convenience, but sometimes we just show up as a contributor to the conversation. By the way, Christy or somebody is going to be posting these slides. And so for those of you that love to take notes, know that these slides are going to be available both in a PDF and the actual PowerPoint presentation themselves. So you can download those as well. But this is about us saying how we're going to create a healthy living environment in our community and what role will all of these organizations play in providing. When we launched into pandemic care, that started by somebody calling the YMCA and saying, can you help us provide childcare for our nurses? And I remember the call and the person's, and I asked, well, how many slots do you think you'll need? And they said, we'll need 1,000 slots across Cincinnati. And that's why we shut our buildings down to membership, because the only way to fill the need of 1,000 kids all overnight was I had to empty the buildings. And so we told the members we were closing our facilities down and asked them to please stay with us, to continue to be members of the YMCA, because we together, the membership and the YMCA are going to go do this thing together. And now, did we have some people drop? Yeah, they were pretty upset, and we had some people leave. And I just reminded our staff that this was a good reminder that we have not done a good job communicating to our members, defining who we are as an organization, because the lion's share of our members said, yes, we're excited to help. Let us know if we can support this work. So what did we do specifically? There is a wide range of solutions that came out of our work. We started to meet basic needs, everything from food distribution to COVID testing to hosting partners. So sometimes people would call us and say, Jorge, we need a place where we can distribute X. And we'd say, great, let's give that space to you. That's how we started doing COVID testing, because unless you misunderstood, the YMCA is not doing COVID testing. We are not swabbing people's noses, and we don't have a lab that we've converted our gym into. We simply host a hospital coalition who needed locations for COVID testing, and we provide the platform for them to do it. And so we did a lot of that work. Same with food distribution. Early on, we were getting the food distributing. Pretty soon we found out that the food bank had more food than we did. And we just said, we just will send all of our food over to you. And would you guys come over to our facilities and help us distribute food? So now when people get COVID testing, some of them also get a meal and some PPE materials. We did the same thing with student support. I won't unpack each of these because so many of us are already doing this, but virtual platforms, everything you can imagine. When we found out kids did not have access to the internet, we got involved in securing access to the internet for them. And so we went on and bought MiFis and began to distribute them across the city. When we found out that they were missing laptops and some hardware, we asked some of our members to see if they'd be willing to donate. And so we just became part of the solutions that began to emerge in the community. And after a while, people just start calling the YMCA. Don't forget the YMCA. We need the YMCA here to help us solve some of these problems. Senior support, and we don't do Meals on Wheels, but when Meals on Wheels needed a place to secure volunteers or to partner with, we started talking to them. If seniors were back in senior centers, we've already worked with senior centers in Hamilton County to provide a location because they weren't able to keep their location open. In other words, the Hamilton County Senior Services downtown will likely be housed out of the YMCA indefinitely. And how much are we charging for any of this? Nothing, absolutely nothing, because their mission is our mission. What it ends up happening for us is able to serve more seniors at low or reduced cost. This is giving us all sorts of headaches with our insurance companies, for those of you that are already thinking about that. All sorts of headaches with funders, all sorts of headaches with, but you know what? Amazon, I'm sure, had all sorts of headaches at the very beginning, and they solved them to address a particular need, and same with other providers. Fitness became online. We began to work with other providers. We're still early in this process, but we began to ask, of all these boutique fitness centers that shut down, maybe we should call them. Maybe we should engage them. Maybe we could help save some of them. And they can become part of the YMCA's collaboration in the region. Not everybody wants a YMCA the way we provide it. Some people want a boutique experience we'll never be able to provide. And so what if we've formed a partnership with those smaller for-profits to see if we could provide some individuals that, still early in conversations there because they're trying to survive, but we're struggling there. In one of our centers, we had to close one of our centers, got a call from the city of this town where this center was located. And they said, we understand you guys are closing. Could we partner to convert it into a rec center? And what would that cost? And we're in the conversations right now. And frankly, one of the things I've done with our board is made sure that they understood that if the city wants the building for $1, then they'll get the building for $1. Because our goal isn't to advance YMCA programs. Our goal is to transform the lives of people. And if we can't do it in a particular community, we'll partner with those partners to carry out this work. Interestingly, those conversations have led into them saying to us, well, what if you guys run the community center for us? So they're going to pay us to run a community center that we couldn't make work financially. And all that was because we were willing to come to the table and have conversations with them. And by the way, we're having conversations with YMCAs around the country about how we make available all of our online classes, because we do not brand them with Cincinnati information on them, which means that the Paducah family YMCA in Paducah, Kentucky can take our fitness classes and show them there, and they can, and we are having conversations about that. We also established some impact centers. Short explanation here is a collection of nonprofits working together in one location to provide a one-stop shop for people in poverty. So instead of a family going to 6 locations for food and job support and senior support, they can go to one location, and we took our logo off of the buildings and convert them into impact centers. And we're working with the Boys and Girls Club, rec centers, churches, food distributions, libraries, all trying to create a one-stop shop for families in need. And we are able to do more if we're willing to share the limelight. Because when you do this kind of work, it's not about who gets the limelight. It's about who and what impact we make in the lives of people. And then finally, redesigning our staff structures, because I can't say this enough. If you're going to live in a different environment, if the world has shifted this much and you're changing the way you do things, but you do not redesign your staff or your business models or cultivate a very different culture, then you're not really serious about the change that you tout you're making. I'll be very specific. Our executive directors at our facilities were used to kind of advancing their careers and eventually getting into some office back in the back of the building where they only got involved with the member who complained. So rarely did they make it to the front, rarely did they work the front desk. Well, that's changed. And it's not changed because of COVID, it's changed indefinitely. We want our best staff on the front lines. We kept putting our best, our least experienced staff on the front lines, and they were given the tours and talking about our mission, and they were 17, 18 years old, working part-time on Saturdays. And we're bringing our best staff to the front, and we're going to keep them there because we don't want our members to hear from the least experienced. We want them to hear from the most experienced. Here's some pictures of some of the things you've seen us do differently. Everything from the COVID testing sites to the challenge. The Reset Challenge is going to be the challenge for January. I know several of you guys have joined us to do that. I think we have about 120 YMCAs already that have signed up, and we believe that that number is going to grow to about 200 YMCAs nationwide. We've had seniors on a Zumba class or on a silver sneakers class. We've had as many as 80 people in a Zoom class all at once. And so does that mean we have to teach them how to use Zoom? Yeah, we did a lot of education for seniors on how we teach them to do Zoom. This last slide kind of represents the environment I think we need to get very comfortable with. The on-site live environment, which is we're very familiar with. This is the site-based environment. Come to the YMCA, take a class, come to our after-school program, come to our race, whatever the on-site is. And then we've gotten, we have to get better at the on-demand. That means that whenever you want to take that class, that's available to you. I don't know whether that's going to be free or not. I don't know that we can compete with the other on-demand platforms. I think for those of us that think we're ever going to compete with on-demand like Beachbody or Peloton, you need to go watch some of those videos and see what I'm talking about. It's really hard to compete with a multi-billion-dollar platform, which is what they have. But they don't have that site-based, and they don't have the possibility for people to do all of the above. So that brings me to the live virtual on-site. One of the things we're testing is what if we could teach one fitness class at one location live, broadcast that fitness class at the same time at 3 other locations or to your home. So one class, one instructor, live at the one location, simulcast to 3 other locations, maybe other YMCAs around the nation, and or to your house. So we don't know what that's going to look like, but we believe that there are going to be people that are going to say, I want to go to the live class, Or I can't go to the live class this week, but I want to see my friends. And so I'm going to take that class live with my friends. Or I can't go to the class. I'm never going to go to the YMCA, but I would rather take a live class than an on-demand class because I want to have a little bit of interaction with the people on the class. And one day, my hope is that YMCAs around the nation will be offering these same things so that an individual can choose from a Silver Sneakers class that's being taught at noon in 17 different locations around the nation. And they can go live if they're near there, or they can just go live or virtually using a Zoom platform. Or they can go to meet their friends at their local YMCA, turn it on the screen there and take that class virtually with their friends at the same time. So I believe this is going to be more of the future. That's the lion's share of what I wanted to share with you guys. I'm going to open it up for some questions at this point.
That was awesome. Everyone, you can either chat in your questions or you can hop off mute and just ask. Both work because we're in a meeting format. Let's see. Jorge, have you had any other YMCAs that you've worked through this process with that have been partnering with you across the movement?
Yeah, long before COVID, because this is something we have not started. We didn't start in March. We launched an initiative where we call the Wellbeing Collaborative, where we wanted to connect with YMCAs around the country. There were about 14 YMCAs, many of them very small Ys, just to see if we could share messaging, if we could share ideas, trainings, culture, and also receive feedback to see if what we were doing was working or not working in those environments, because we didn't want to create things that just weren't scalable. And that Wellbeing Collaborative has gave rise to the strong challenge that many of you guys have experienced. And as we roll out the Reset challenge, with that comes a free join to the Wellbeing Collaborative, which will give you access to all of our online trainings that we have for our staff, all of the monthly messaging that we do for our members, any videos we produce and support, so that if you want to customize them locally, we can help you with that. And long term, we'd love for that Wellbeing Collaborative to begin to share their best Zumba instructor, because I do not believe the best Zumba instructor might be in Cincinnati. That best Zumba instructor may be in Alaska, and I need to have access to that instructor. And I may share our best Pilates instructor. I'll have access to their best Zumba, and together we'll just be better.
That's awesome. We had one question about virtual classes because this YMCA had done some virtual classes and had a positive turnout. What has your member feedback been around the virtual classes?
You know, it's been mixed. We're trying to understand how to improve it. So overall, when people have no options, they've been very, very strong. I mean, as I indicated earlier, we had 80 seniors in a class taking a Silver Sneaker class. And many of our classes are filling up and growing and developing. And the instructors are getting better at engaging using the Zoom platform. And that's the platform we're using. We're Zooming the classes, and we've been working with Zoom to improve the quality and creating what we're calling Zoom rooms in our facilities. And then also platforms in our facility. So if a member wants to take the Zoom class, but they don't want to do it at their house, they want to do it at a local YMCA, but they don't want to drive to that YMCA, the YMCA far away, they can do that with some friends. And so we've got some individuals showing up at a YMCA, firing up our platform and taking a class as being taught somewhere else, but they're doing it with their friends, or they can do it at home with their friends. So it's a growing platform. We did launch a virtual branch, like many YMCAs are doing, and trying to understand how that's going to flesh out. So far, so good, learning how to build relationships with people. And I will tell you that the strong challenge and the challenges have been a game changer. Really strong way to connect people and on-ramp them into virtual relationships and connections.
Yeah, I think the shift of virtual branches has been a major player this year. I mean, it was a player before, but even more so this year. So I'm interested to see how that continues to roll out. We had a question about how a independent Y or a small Y could get on board with the reset challenge.
Well, I know that one of my colleagues did respond with the email of jsaunders@myy.org. So you can just send an email and say, I want to learn more about this. He'll send you some links and some information so that you can understand what that's all about. We are charging a little bit this year for this. So $1,500 is the price point for the small YMCAs. And again, it's not just the challenge that you're paying for, it's for all 3 challenges we'll do this coming year. So we're going to do a January challenge, we'll do a summer challenge, we'll do a fall challenge, and the $1,500 will cover all of that. Plus, you'll have access to all the materials I mentioned earlier. If there is a YMCA that cannot afford that, we've already found some funders that can help support that for the smaller YMCAs if that's necessary. So the idea here is for us to do this together. Let me pause here for a second. Let me tell you why this is so important. And this goes back to the viral portion of my 4 V's. One of the things that we know about social media is a diffused message is no message. In other words, if I say one thing and another Y says another thing and another Y says another thing, even if it's almost the same thing, we get very desperately diffused. But if we all say the same thing, we begin to really create some powerful energy, some social media energy around that. So if we can do the reset challenge together, and let's say there's 50,000 people around the nation taking this, and they're all posting on social media, hashtag reset 2020. The amount of energy that gets created by this, not just at the national level, but even among my own markets, is significant. And I'll be very specific. When we launched the Strong Challenge to several YMCAs around the country, one of the things we did is we asked them to keep to use the group on Facebook called the Strong YMCA Strong Facebook group, and not to create one for themselves. It doesn't say Cincinnati on it, just use that one, move people into that space. And when we begin to see moms from one part of the country say things like, I'm really struggling this week, I don't know how to teach my kids and how to support my kids while working and getting fit. All of a sudden, moms from all over the country begin to jump in and support that mom. That could not have happened if I just singled out a particular small community. And so I'm watching people jump in as contributors, members as contributors to supporting each other. And if you want to be inspired, go on Facebook, find the YMCA Strong group, and listen and watch those stories. It is extraordinary. One of the things we learned about this work. So email jsaunders@myy.org. He'll get you all set up.
As someone who has been following along with a lot of the content that you guys have been producing the past few months, I highly recommend it. It's awesome. What has been some of your favorite takeaways from the stories that you've heard from your members throughout this time that like have sparked a new inspiration or passion for the movement in you?
Well, I maybe it would be helpful to understand where the conversation of the transactional to transformational came from. and a little bit about my journey. So those of you that know me, I spent the vast majority of my career, both in the YMCA and before the YMCA, working with urban inner city kids. So I was working with the most vulnerable populations. I did this in Dallas and Indianapolis, and the first time I was here in Cincinnati. We measured our impact all the time. So when we were helping kids get better grades, we tracked to see that they got better grades. When we were helping kids doing pregnancy prevention, we tracked the number of pregnancies in a particular school. When we helped individuals reduce crime engagements around junior highs, we tracked the amount of you know, crimes or tensions that junior highs were involved in. When we tracked when we did drug prevention, we actually could tell whether we reduced the number of kids using gateway drugs. And then I would listen to my colleagues in the other space of the YMCA. I would listen to my colleagues in the health and wellness and in the after school and in the summer camp, and I was not hearing the same thing. Where I was talking about what was happening in terms of transforming people's lives, my colleagues were talking about retention rates and budgets and a few scholarships that they gave away. And don't get me wrong, those things are important measurements. I measure that. We measure that here in Cincinnati. But a scholarship given to a kid does not mean that that kid's life was transformed. All it means is that they got a swim lesson. The question is, did that swim lesson do what that swim lesson was originally designed to do, which is to strengthen the spirit, the minds, and the body of that child? So one of the things that has inspired me greatly is to watch our members, to watch our staff, to watch our community begin to see us, not as a place where you go buy stuff, buy swim lessons, buy after school, buy fitness, but it's a place where you go to be transformed and where you, if you choose, can be transformational. And that's been exciting to watch that. Probably a best example there was when we launched the pandemic childcare, began to tell the stories about some of the things we're doing. One of our largest churches in the area called us up and said, we want to help. We want to dedicate the entire offering of a Sunday morning to the YMCA's pandemic childcare work. $250,000 on a Sunday morning. That is inspiring.
That's awesome. That I love the full community getting on board. So doesn't look like we have any other questions. Oh, there is one more question. As I said that, is there a fee for the community to participate in virtual programming?
At this point, we are not making it fee-based. I do believe that the YMCA, and this goes to my viral point, if the YMCA is going to go viral, we're going to have to deliver some content for free. We have to do this. And if there's ever an opportunity, and I would argue almost a no-cost opportunity, why not this? Why not this? I already filmed the class. It doesn't cost me anything more to put it on the YouTube channel. Who cares if 50,000 people see it? And if this is the way that they can be transformed, then this is fantastic. I want to go back to that slide. I don't know if you guys are still seeing my slide deck, but yeah, thank you. So look at that last column where it says virtual on demand. If somebody simply takes a class and they start getting healthier in spirit or minds or bodies, just simply take a class. But they at some point say, look, I want to get more involved because our instructors are engaging them and saying to them, you know, being fit isn't all you need to do to be a healthy human being. You need to be more, you need to be engaged, maybe tutoring a kid, engaging, maybe even inviting them to be a guest to the studio, that at some point that individual will say, I want to be part of this movement. I want to be part of this thing. And I'll pay for that. Because here's what, I'm going to go back to the statement that I said earlier about if we delivered on our mission. If we delivered on our mission, to strengthen spirit, minds, and bodies, and we knew we did. We wouldn't have to advertise today to anymore. And I would tell you, people all over the country would say, can you believe you get that only for $700 for the whole year? Can you believe that? Can you believe that there's a place where your bodies can be stronger, where your minds can be stronger, where your spirit will be stronger for only $700 a year? Instead, we're asking, well, how do we compete with the $9.95 a month? Well, that's the wrong question. If all you're going to do is give access, and that is it, then you don't understand, I believe you don't understand the mission of the YMCA. When we were working with those urban inner city kids, and I'll tell some stories about that work, and we transformed their very lives. I didn't just make sure they get better grades. I followed a group of sixth graders all the way into college. Many of them right now are friends with me on Facebook, and they're engineers, and they're nurses, and they're teachers, and they're doctors, or they own their small business, they own their own businesses. I remember this one kid who was in special needs classes, but he wanted to be part of our club that was part of the YMCA there in Dallas. And one of the things that his dad did was a bricklayer. And so he knew how to lay brick. There was a job at the YMCA that required some bricklaying. So I convinced the executive director to allow this kid to do the bricklaying, and he did. And today this kid owns his own business and posts his own videos on Facebook on how to lay bricks. What would he pay for that? By the way, many of these young people now support the YMCA and provide resources in their local communities, or they'll send me some dollars when I ask for resources, because they want to be part of this. They want to be part of the next service, the next opportunity. So I believe it's an opportunity for us to stretch out, to be viral, to show off, and then give people a taste of what they will find once they come into our doors. And if what they need to get is free, then that's what we'll do. I believe the stuff in the middle column, the virtual on-site or the virtual live, some of that stuff is going to be fee-based, but we may have 3 different price tags. 0, which is the column number 1, the one to the right. Something in the $20 or $15 in the middle, and maybe our regular pricing for all of the above toward the end. But I don't want it to be about transactional, because I want to be the CEO, and I've said this to my staff before. I want to be the CEO that one day sends an email to our members and say, hey, Tom, hey, Billy, hey, Sally, we haven't seen you in the YMCA for a while, so we're going to stop billing you. Because we're not about your money, we're about you. And if you're not going to come in, I'm not going to keep taking your money. Unfortunately, we have a transactional model that insists that I take money from people, even if they don't show up. And I think that's a mistake. I think that's an opportunity for us to correct a transactional practice, and we need to move more into transformation.
That was, everything you had to share was awesome. Thank you so much, Jorge. We really appreciate your thoughts. If you guys have more questions for him throughout the event, you can message him on Cadence and pick his brain, or post in the live chat. But I'll be adding the PowerPoint to Cadence so that you guys can reference it after this meeting. And if you guys don't have any other questions, we'll go ahead and hop off. I'll give you a couple minutes back in your day, because we'll be joining back in the main room at 12:30. So you have about 10 minutes to do a bathroom break, grab a snack, and we will see you back there. But Jorge, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Just as a parting, if you are ever wondering whether you can use any of the materials you get from the Cincinnati YMCA, don't ask, just use it. We intentionally do not put the YMCA of Cincinnati's information on there because we want you to use it. And so thank you. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.